Greetings, my friends. This is Stasia Bliss from blissinthehouse.com. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these, and I'm so inspired this evening. The topic is what is bliss and how to own it now. Bliss is the word of the day, the topic of the hour, the essence of who we truly are. This is a subject that I have embraced as my name, being called Bliss. I really want to look at what we think this is, because so many times the image of bliss is conjured in our mind, that of, a peak moment, some ecstatic state or orgasmic moment, or when everything is just really going well, all of our chakras are aligned, everything is buzzing, and that is what we attribute as what is bliss. I would like to argue and express to you that I believe bliss to be our natural state of being, our birthright, that which is there no matter what, underlying and overlying all else that is, all other states. And all we need truly do is to uncover it, bring it to the surface, allow it to emanate through us, allow it to radiate through our being as it wishes to, as it desires to. You could think of it as the God source energy, the universal life principle. In yoga, they talk about 5 body sheaths, starting at the physical body, moving out to the pranic body, the mental body, the wisdom body, and finally the Anandamaya kosha, the bliss body. And these are not separate bodies from one another, but are overlapping, interconnected, more expanded versions, all of the one. And this bliss body, this is our most expanded state, but it is the one that connects us with one another fully, with the all, with the infinite, is the one. And I like to just think of it as the overriding essence of who we are, that we are this bliss. That no matter what is occurring in our small self life, the smaller shrunken vantage point, the perspective of, day to day, no matter what is happening on that level, there's always this grander perspective that if we but take a moment, we can back ourselves out into and look from, that we can look from this place. So right now in this moment, I would like to ask you to take a deep breath in and just feel your own physical body. Notice the way your body is sitting, the positioning, without needing to change anything, just notice it. And then breathe into it. So in this way, accessing these first 2 levels of being, the physical and that energetic pranic body. And then notice now any thoughts in your mind, whatever is just present now, and they might be fleeting, maybe thoughts you've been carrying around. And then if you expand again and tune into that place of inspiration. So if you can, just lift your awareness up a little bit more to a more soaring state. And breathe in a little bit of gratitude. And when we do this, we we rise a little bit out of just the lower mind, the chattery thoughts. And we come into that interconnected wisdom body where we can access wisdom from source, from the collective, inspiration. But then if we go beyond all thoughts, even impressions of thoughts, and just really go out further to just a sense of interconnectivity, a place where oneness can be felt and observed, where we can get a glimpse in our mind's eye and maybe even with our being, with our other senses, of this web of interconnectivity, of this source field, if you will, as some have called it. And notice this place. And in this thoughtless, mindless state, if you will, the no mind, where we really can just sense the essence of the atmosphere of existence, can you not help but feel what one might term bliss? It's quiet. There's a pulse. There's a joy that's not really comprehensible. It's just a vastness of yes. That was my experience. And from this place, each and every one of us emanate from. We are derived from it. The only way we can touch it now with our experience together is because we come from it. We're not reaching out to something that is beyond us. We are returning to the source of who we are, of what we come from. And the farthest point we are from that is when we're just in the mundane, just in the physical, and yet we can hold both together. Sometimes we're just doing physical, mundane activities and we forget that. And we're just in the lower state. We're just in the body and we're not accessing the whole picture. But sometimes we are. They say before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Well, we can be in our body doing mundane tasks. We can be, folding our clothes, washing dishes, interacting with one another on a physical level, and it can be just physical. It can be. But after a certain stage of conscious evolution, of awakening, of becoming aware of life and its many levels, and I really believe after we've awakened to a certain point, and in yogic philosophy that would be, after we raise the energy up through our third chakra and it doesn't continue to drop down into the basic primal needs anymore. It's lifted up above that into a more like empowered and heart-centered and oneness-centered consciousness. When we are in that state, we cannot help but do those mundane physical acts with a higher awareness. And that doesn't mean we don't sometimes drop back and forth into the quote dramas for moments, but we begin to more and more have the ability to step back out, in between or after or during when we're really good, and notice and observe. Because, as we become more conscious beings, as we begin to really embody this knowledge of bliss as our inherent state, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the, quote, yucky times or whatever go away. No. I don't think that's necessarily the truth of what happens. I think really it's just our perspective on it that changes. Our attachment to it changes. That we are no longer wishing it away necessarily, but instead we are able to gracefully experience it with a perspective that is what I would term godlike. And I like to use the phrase, "this too is bliss." That doesn't mean that there aren't some experiences that you can choose to say no to. If you have the opportunity to say no to something that does not resonate and feel good with you, then by all means you can choose that path and experience peace. Experience your bliss. But oftentimes life gives us experiences that we can't say no to. They are just there happening. We are in them. We are in the trenches. And it's happening. And maybe we very much want to stay in it and work through it and find again the peace and joy and love that we've had there. And it's just something that has to come up, that has to be cleared, maybe in a relationship or with a family member or a child, something we're not willing to walk away from. And so in that case, we can stare the experience down and say, "This too is bliss." Remember that even in this moment that feels very sharp or very deep or very dark, that we are still able to access the whole picture. That in this moment of chopping wood, where the wood is splintering, the air is cold, the axe is sharp, all those elements may be true, but the consciousness is present. The enlightened mind sees through the eyes at the act that is occurring, at the conversation, the whatever pains might be coming up. So the way that we are able to step into this and own this is, first we must ask ourselves, what is bliss? We must ask the question. And we must first assess, because we're all coming with pre-programmed ideas until we change them, until we rearrange them. And it really depends on how we were raised, what we were taught. And oftentimes, even if we've done loads of self-work on ourselves, we've done tons of healing, tons of spiritual work, we might still be carrying straggling beliefs because we haven't thought to address them or ask the question. So if we can ask, what do I believe that bliss is? And we can answer that for ourselves honestly. Then we can see what we believe about it. If we still believe it is one of those things where it's just part of the opposites. There's the lows and then there's the bliss. There's the pain and then there's the bliss. And if that is still your belief about bliss, then this needs to be addressed first. This needs to be addressed initially, so that can be cleared. And, in my first book, The Chocolate Fast, Embracing Your Bliss One Truffle at a Time, available on my website, blissinthehouse.com, and through Amazon, I asked the question, what is bliss? And the whole point of that book is to help help me to work through the process of reconnecting with this authentic bliss, this truth of who we are. In this particular project with the Chocolate Fast, I do this with chocolate, but you can do this with anything. And the reason why I choose chocolate is a lot of people, and myself included before I started this experiment, we tend to take something that we love very much, like chocolate or another dessert or some other thing that we call our vice, and we kind of hold it at a distance from ourselves. We allow it at certain times, and we kind of feel a little bit guilty maybe if we had too much, or maybe we after we've had enough good food, we'll give it to ourselves, or however we do it. We sort of limit this really great experience. And I use it as an example, and I of course don't do this anymore with myself with chocolate. I allow myself to eat all I want, but we do this with our authenticity, with our bliss too. We only feel like we deserve a certain amount of goodness, a certain amount of connectivity, and then back in the muck we go, back in the mire, and it's almost like we feel like we have to punish ourselves in this way, that we feel that life must somehow be this way, even if we really don't think that, even if on a very conscious level we don't believe that's true. There's a part of the subconscious mind that still is saying, I'm undeserving, I'm not worthy of good all the time, I'm not worthy of being, blissful or whatever. And so that part of us needs to be dealt with. In the book, I'm leading you through a fast using something that you love, chocolate or whatever. And, fasting on it means you're just focusing on that thing. Every time you feel, quote, hungry, or you feel a need to be nourished, then you're sitting down with this thing that you've held from yourself and you're giving it to yourself. You're gifting it to yourself and saying, in this moment, I'm eating this, I'm consuming this in order to reconnect with the truth of who I am, with my bliss. And it's a method. And you can use other methods, but I found this to be very effective, because when you've kept something from yourself, but now you're giving it to yourself freely with intention, and the intention is key, and I go over that in the book, but intention is key, because as you make the intention, that allows a door to open in your mind, in your psyche, even in the subconscious, where you have planted these particular beliefs, habits, patterns associated with your unworthiness. So after that, beyond when you find out what those things are that are blocking you, my next suggestion is that we deal with those subconscious patterns. And we can do them little by little, just with the fast, with intention, but at some point, and especially if they are deep and still haunting us, we have to do some subconscious work. And that's where I get into the Yoga Nidra practices. Yoga Nidra helps you to go into the subconscious mind and redo the belief patterns that are there. And it's absolutely phenomenal work. Very deep, effective, beautiful stuff. So after we locate and we clear, then we start to realize that bliss is who we really are, and we really start to claim that. Yes, I know this. And we start to find those things that we enjoy, and we start to bring them into our lives more fully, because after it's chocolate, then we realize it's also music, and it's also, getting together with people we love, and it's also cooking, and it's also long baths, or whatever it is. We start to allow ourselves those things that we love more and more and more, and we stop making ourselves do the things that we thought we should be doing to make it, to fit in, to do the, quote, appropriate things in this world, and we start doing the things that we really enjoy. And as we are doing what we enjoy, we are reconnecting with that authentic state. Because though bliss is not necessarily meaning that ecstatic place, that high, who we truly are is not a low vibration. We are by our very essence, gods and goddesses, if you will. If you don't like that term or you're uncomfortable with it, just think of it as, we are advanced beings. We are spiritual beings. We are not just this body. We are not just earthbound in this way. The human existence is just a stopover, if you will. And there's so much more. There's so much more. And so sometimes we trap ourselves in these lower experiences thinking that's all there is, and that's what we have to do, and that's the grind, or we need to make the money, or whatever. But when we open up to the truth of who we are, and we realize that bliss is our natural state, it's the truth of who we are. It's what is our birthright. We have a right to happiness. We have a right to experience our authentic nature, which, overall I think is a joyful thing. It's what we came here to express, and the earth needs each one of us being authentic to who we are. And that doesn't mean necessarily authentic in our psychoses. some of those things are just subconscious patterns that need to be cleared. But truly, when we are, relieved of those things, then the truth of ourselves shines through. And that truth of who we are doesn't necessarily do anything. It will do things, but the truth of who we are is an essence, is a beingness, is an emanation of a certain vibration. When you come in the room and you are just emanating you don't have to say anything to me for me to know who you are. Now you can start playing an instrument or talking or singing or cooking, and that's an addition, that's a plus on top of the essence of who you are. And when you're truly just vibing you're owning it. You're not having to prove it to me. You don't have to, do anything specific to show me who you are. In fact, you're not showing me if you're trying too hard. I can see that that's a facade. But it's okay. We all go through that process of struggling with the confidence of just simply being, because we were taught growing up that just simply being ourselves maybe wasn't enough, that we needed to somehow prove that we were good enough by our actions. And as a mother, I know it's difficult when you're raising a child to not somehow tell the child that they need to act a certain way in order to be good. It's really hard to not give that message. And so it's important for me and for all that are parents to reiterate that to our children, that you are just wonderful, just exactly being you, until they can get it. And then, great, showing up and acting a certain way is helpful for cooperation's sake. But truly, we are all good enough just being ourselves, just without doing anything, just sitting in the room emanating who we are. And then, of course, there's the level of action, which is once we've got that and we're emanating who we are, then we can start moving that emanation into action, into the world, and we start connecting with each other, networking, collaborating, cooperating, and creating, from that place of authenticity. So, to kind of bring this back around to what is bliss, bliss is our natural state. And this life is something like a tapestry, a place for a painting to occur, a canvas. This analogy has been used many times, but I love it because it's true that when we stop looking at polarity as being the truth, at a lower perspective, it is what we experience, but it's simply just one octave of the truth. And as we look at life as this canvas, then our experiences, instead of being good ones and bad ones, instead of judging and placing judgment on them, we can instead look at them as different colors on the canvas that is life. And, it's all bliss. We're making a beautiful painting using black and yellow and purple and red and all shades in between. It's a beautiful painting. The whole thing is beautiful. And that summation of the whole is the bliss. It's a beautiful painting. You're a beautiful being. Life is a beautiful thing. Now, maybe it's a dark-looking painting sometimes. And the painting is changing, right? It's ever-changing. It's kind of like it's digital, and once it's complete, it now is morphing into something else. But, and maybe if you don't think you're a good painter, sometimes you say, I'm a bad painter and I can't paint or whatever. But the truth is our experiences are like, colors that create an image. And if you don't think of yourself so much as the painter, because it's really life, the one energy that's coming through us and painting the tapestry, and we are experiencing ourselves as the colors. It's true, we are the painter as well, but sometimes it's hard to own that part of ourselves. So just allow yourself to be wherever you are, whatever's happening, it's beautiful. Another analogy that I love is the instruments in a symphony, that life is a symphony playing through us. And we're at different times in our lives, we're drums, we're cymbals, we're trombones, we're flutes, violin, the cello. Different experiences sound different. Some are low, some are high, tinkling notes, and you wouldn't want the song to all just sound like the high notes, which is sometimes what we want in life. We sometimes think we want everything to be all rosy all the time. But it would be a very boring song if it was only just high notes on a flute played and nothing else, right? So it's difficult sometimes when processing what we would call negative experiences. And I've been hearing this a lot lately. Experiences that are termed undesirable. And, it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, because on the one hand, you don't want to perpetuate things knowingly that are sharp. You wouldn't necessarily paint the whole entire canvas black and put nothing else on it. So if it's going like that, then yes, a new perspective needs to come in. But at the same time, you can't cut all of those things completely out of the world and trash them away. So what is the appropriate way to look at them? What is the reason? What is the, if you want to say, right way to observe, the highest perspective that you can have on these things? And I truly believe that these things show up for us so we can rise out of them, so we can overcome them. It's like one of my teachers says, we create the illusion so that we can gain an insight from it. As masters of our reality, when we realize that something is, not completely what we would want to perpetuate, then it's offering us a chance to gain an insight, to gain a new perspective from it, to overcome it, to change it, now transmute and transcend out of it. Be the alchemist of your experience. You're not going to stay in the dross, but the dross is there to be transformed into something else. The clay is meant to become a pot, not to continue and stay mud. So that is my thoughts on it. So to own this bliss now, just to really know in every moment this too is bliss, from the highest vantage point possible. And to know that each experience coming in is a color, but to always observe it from that bigger picture, see the painting being drawn, hear the music. Know that it is your birthright to be in the state of bliss, which is a peaceful place of knowing your interconnectedness with all of life. Breathe that in. Feel yourself connecting to the truth of who you are, to your wholeness. I'm recording this on the eve of what we term Thanksgiving in the United States, and I'm very thankful for this knowledge of bliss. And I know that gratitude is one of the main attitudes for raising our perspective to a higher vantage point and tapping in to that blissful state that is our birthright. So I'm going to close up today's show with gratitude. I am deeply and wholly grateful for my awareness of the oneness of life. I'm grateful that I have the perspective that I can see that we are brothers and sisters, that we are family, that we are so interconnected, so intertwined, that the things that I decide within myself and I see in you that rub me the wrong way, I can change in me. And by in turn, it will change in you. We are that closely entangled in that divine matrix. I'm grateful for the things that I have passed through that have brought me to this now, and I'm grateful for the vibration of love. Sistasia Bliss, Bliss in the house. Thank you for joining me in the show. Own your bliss. It's your birthright. Namaste.